Welcome to Beyond the Needle, the aesthetics business podcast. I'm your host, Emily Ruse. I'm a former clinic manager turned digital marketing freelancer, and I've had the privilege of helping dozens of aesthetic practitioners across the UK and beyond grow their business. So I know firsthand just how challenging it can be to build a successful aesthetics practice in today's competitive market. Each week, I'm here to share real, actionable strategies and bring on expert guests to help you level up, attract more patients, and build a standout brand. Let's turn your passion into a thriving business together. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Needle podcast. Today we're diving into one of the most underrated growth strategies for aesthetic clinics, hosting events. For most clinics, events look and feel the same. Patients come in, they sip some bubbles, they maybe flick through a brochure, watch a demo, and then leave without booking. It's a nice evening, but it doesn't necessarily move the needle when it comes to getting your appointments booked in the diary. What I want to show you today is how to flip that on its head, because when you design an event with intention, when it feels less like a sales pitch and more like an experience, it becomes one of the most powerful ways to attract new patients, deepen loyalty with your existing ones, and position your clinic as the go-to in your area. I think events are such a powerful marketing tool for clinics, but many are really underusing them or not using them the right way. In this episode, I will unpack why most clinic events miss the mark and the key ingredients that turn a forgettable open house into a premium, memorable, revenue-generating experience. We'll look at designing the flow, we'll talk about creating real exclusivity, and we'll make sure patients actually book before they walk out the door. If you've ever thought about running an event but weren't sure if it's worth the effort, or you've tried before and ended up with compliments but not much in your diary at the end of it, then this episode is for you. So let's get into it. How to host a clinic event that doesn't just look good in the photos, but genuinely grows your business and gets you new people through the door as well. Before we start, just a quick reminder that if you do enjoy these episodes, please do remember to subscribe to the podcast for notifications when new ones go live and leave me a little review. I really appreciate each and every one of them. So let's start with the mistake I see all the time. Clinics begin with the guest list. They think, okay, who can we invite? Let's get as many people through the door as possible and see what happens. Now, I understand the temptation. A buzzing room feels exciting, but if you don't know why you're hosting the event, the head count doesn't matter. You'll get nice comments and a few tags on your Instagram stories maybe, but nothing that's actually going to drive revenue for your business. What you want to start with is the goal, not the guest list. So ask yourself, what do I actually want this event to achieve for my clinic? One event, one objective. If the goal is to fill a specific treatment, maybe you've invested in a Morpheus 8 device or you're launching Sculptra, then the evening needs to be about education and proof. People book when they understand and believe. So that means live demonstrations or a strong case study, clear before and afters, honest myth busting, and a Q&A that makes them feel safe and informed. If the goal is to nurture your existing patients into upsells, the tone changes slightly. It becomes a VIP evening, softer and more celebratory. You already have trust and now you're deepening it. So perhaps you invite your regular dermal filler patients and introduce them to skin boosters or advanced skin treatments or even skincare with your favorite brand rep leading a mini masterclass. And if the goal is visibility, so attracting new faces and maybe raising your profile locally, then you focus on experience. So you perhaps partner with a local wellness studio or a hair salon or a makeup artist. You make the night memorable and highly shareable. So you're planting seeds, not trying to force a sale at the end of it. But the key is you can't do all of that in one night. So you need to pick a single goal and then design your event backwards. When you're clear on what you want to achieve, you go from just hosting a pleasant evening to an actual growth strategy, because when you know the goal, you know exactly what success looks like, and then you can build every detail that goes into your event from there. Now, once you've set the goal, you have to position the evening or the lunchtime session, whatever it is, as an experience, not a sales day. So patients can sense a hard sell a mile away. And the second it feels pitchy, they feel like they're going to walk in and they're going to feel like they have to buy or invest in something there and then before they leave, they check out. So you curate an evening that people would genuinely want to attend, even if they didn't book at the end of it. The sale becomes a natural byproduct. So imagine reframing introducing our new skin treatment into the science of skin, an evening where guests explore what actually happens beneath the surface and why they're experiencing the signs of aging that they are and the various things that they can do about it. You bring out the skin scanner, you break down myths they've picked up from the media, you show them the problem and then the solution side by side. Or you could even build a rolling, confidence series of events where each event has a theme. So maybe the jawline this month, the eyes the next month, skin health after that. And then you frame it around empowerment and education. Another approach I love is the 360-degree nights, which I think fits in with a lot of clinics' approaches. That holistic approach that a lot of clinics seem to be taking at the moment. This might be where you bring in a nutritionist or a breathwork coach or maybe a stylist. And suddenly you're not just offering a treatment, you're hosting a complete transformation. When people feel like they're coming to learn, connect, and be inspired rather than be sold to, they relax, they lean in, they ask better questions, and then they say yes on their terms because they genuinely believe in it and they feel like they're part of something. And I think it's really nice partnering with people who have a similar target audience to yourself, but they're not your direct competition, because then you naturally build relationships with other people in your local area who have that same target audience as you, and you can build a kind of referral network from that. But I'll talk about that a little bit more in depth further on in the episode. So let's talk about venue because it really sets the tone for your event. And hosting in your clinic is fine. And for a lot of people, that is probably going to be the most practical place to host your event. But there are times where stepping outside of your four walls can really elevate an event and its perceived value. So, think a hotel boutique's private dining room with beautiful lighting, a glass waiting on arrival, and your branding subtly placed. That kind of takes an event to the next level if you were hosting something maybe for your VIP patients, or if you were partnering with another business, as I just mentioned. A rooftop or members club doesn't need a huge guest list. In fact, small is often better. 12 carefully chosen guests in a high status space instantly elevates how they see your brand. And that doesn't have to be wildly expensive. Midweek slots are often flexible. Some venues will collaborate if your audiences overlap. The point is simple. Unusual venues shift the energy, and sometimes going out of your clinic can help people feel like they're more part of an experience and they're not just there to be sold to. Next, let's talk about flow because most events fall flat because there's no flow. People come in, they get a glass of bubbles, they mill around, stand on the side of the room waiting for something to happen, and then maybe someone does say a few words, attention drifts, energy dips, maybe there's a demo going on, but people don't really know like where to go or where they should be. If you want conversion, design it like a theatre production. So you're the director, and from that very first hello to the last booked consultation, the journey should feel intentional. So start with an arrival ritual that signals that they're about to have an experience. A welcome drink, a 5-minute LED, or a quick skin scan on arrival, something that kind of starts the evening off. Then move everyone into a short education segment that speaks to patient pain points. You're going to want to focus on one specific concern here. I would focus it on concerns rather than treatments itself. Obviously, you can bring in the treatments and position them as a solution to that concern that you're talking about. I would make the main theme of whatever you're talking about to do with a specific concern because, like I say, people want to feel educated and informed. They don't want to feel sold to. So if you do a talk about sculpture rather than the pain points and problems that people are experiencing, that sculpture can be a great treatment option for, then it's going to feel salesy. But if you do a talk about the lower face and what happens to the lower face with age and why people are starting to experience laxity and jowling, and position sculpture as a solution for that lower face aging, it suddenly feels much more informative and people see why they need to invest in sculpture because it's going to help rejuvenate that area and help them overcome that problem of that lower face laxity that they're experiencing. And then show the treatment in action. So a live demo is so powerful, especially when it comes to injectables, because people are really scared. If they've never had an injectable treatment before, they're really scared. They don't know what to expect. They don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know what it's going to feel like. They don't know anything about what to expect from the treatment. And showing them the treatment in action is a really powerful way to help overcome those fears and to address any myths that they, have in their mind about that treatment. So doing a live treatment demo is really, really powerful. And as you're injecting, as you're treating the patient, the model, you can talk through what you're doing, answer people's questions, and also address the common myths and misconceptions that you hear about the treatment. For things like sculpture, obviously the results aren't going to be instant, but you can obviously have before and after photos maybe on a screen behind you that someone's kind of going through as you're talking. But if you want to do a demo that is really powerful, then fillers are probably the way to go. I've had a guest on here before who's talked about events, and she said the most powerful events that she's ever done were dermal filler events, because dermal fillers is one of her favorite treatments to do, and she found that women were so scared of them. So having people come in and watch her perform those treatments really helped them see that it wasn't actually a scary treatment. And obviously the results of dermal fillers are instant, so people could see like one side of the face transforming before their eyes, and then she did the other one, and they could see that result live happening in front of them, which was a really, really powerful way to convert curious people into bookings. That was my episode with Dr. Alison Colville. If anyone wants to go back and listen to that, she gave some really great tips for events, which has been a huge part of her marketing strategy. And then at the end of your demo, add a touch of engagement. So a quick myth quiz or a show of hands moment, a poll, asking people if they have any other questions to add. And I know a lot of people are scared to ask that question just in case no one's brave enough to ask anything. So maybe just have a few common FAQs at the top of mind. So if people aren't, willing to ask, but normally they are, especially if they, if people are watching the treatment happen, naturally they're going to have questions, but maybe just have a few common FAQs that you can run through in that, in that instance. And then weave in an offer at the end of the treatment demonstration as the logical next step. So you don't want to talk about it at the start of the evening or the start of the demonstration, because then everyone instantly feels like they're being sold to. And you don't want to say it quietly at the end while people are leaving the room. Just add it in naturally at the end of answering people's questions, because like I say, naturally people are going to have questions after watching that treatment. And what you can say to make it really natural is, everyone is unique, and what's right for you isn't going to be right for somebody else. And the only way to determine the best treatment for you is to have one-to-one consultation with a practitioner. So if you would like to understand whether sculpture is going to be right for you, and if you would like to understand what the options are, we've opened a block of priority complimentary consultations for tonight's guests. Come to the booking desk, get booked in. If you book in for your consultation tonight, you will get 10% off your treatment if you decide to go ahead. You don't have to do an offer, and a lot of great events can just be really educational and helping people understand the options and helping curious people take the next step. And you don't always need an offer to get people to do that, but it is a good incentive to get people to move there and then, rather than going home thinking about it, waiting. They think to themselves, oh, I'm just going to think about it and, see how I feel about this tomorrow or next week. And then life happens and they get distracted and they don't make that booking, not because they didn't want to, but because life happens and they got distracted. But if you give them an incentive to kind of get that consultation booked in there and then, because it's going to be complimentary and they're going to get 10% off their treatment, whatever treatment they decide to go ahead with, then it gives them a little bit of an incentive to get booked in there and then before they leave the clinic that evening, which is kind of what you want, because once people have left, you don't know when they're going to book and if they're going to book, and then you don't have anything to measure in terms of the success of your event. So next I want to talk about the psychology of exclusivity, because exclusivity is one of the most underrated psychological levers you can pull when it comes to hosting a clinic event. And the beauty of it is you don't have to be pushy, you don't need to slash prices and You don't have to try and convince anyone that they need to come to this event. You simply change the way you position the event, and suddenly it feels like something that they don't want to miss. Now, in aesthetics, patients aren't just buying treatments. We know that they're buying how it feels to be your patient. They're buying the feeling they're going to have when they see the results. They're buying the confidence that they're going to experience. And people want to feel special. They want to feel like they're part of something that not everyone can access. And that's why this works so well. Scarcity and exclusivity tap into two powerful drivers: urgency and status. So, if we break this down, first up, you've got invitation only. So imagine you send out a beautifully designed invite, probably digitally, that says, "We're personally inviting our most valued patients to a private evening at the clinic." Straight away, that feels different from a general come one, come all post on Instagram. It says, "You matter to us. You're special. You're in our inner circle." And when someone feels chosen, the natural response is to lean in and say yes, because they feel like they're personally being invited. They're not just one person on a patient database that's being sold to. And you can even extend that by saying, if you'd like to bring a friend who you think would benefit, we'd love to welcome them too. That way, you're not only deepening your existing patient relationships, but you're also bringing in high quality referrals. Next, you've got limited spots. So there's a big difference between saying we're hosting an event, don't miss out, here's the link to book, versus we have 20 seats available. The first sounds casual and isn't going to give people much of a reason to decide there and then. The second one creates urgency. So people instantly think, well, I need to secure my place before it fills. And the thing is, having fewer people come to an event actually helps you because it creates intimacy. You can connect properly with people. You can go around, you can talk to everyone one on one, you can answer questions, and you can build trust in a way that's much harder to do with a huge crowd. And I've been at clinic events before where the clinic was overfilled, and it wasn't a great experience because people literally couldn't move. Most small independent clinics aren't huge buildings. And if you have 30 plus people in there at once, it can feel a little bit crowded. And that's not a good experience for anybody. So actually having like 15, 20 people is a nice amount for most clinics. So don't be afraid to cap it and make a point of saying no. The scarcity is practical and it makes your event more desirable. And it also shows people, like, if they can't get a slot because they didn't book straight away, that your event's popular and next time they need to get in quicker. And then we've got exclusive access. So this is where you can really play with patient psychology. So let's say you've just invested in a new device, Morpheus 8, Emsculpt, Sockwave, whatever it is. Instead of just announcing it on social media, position your event as the first chance to see it, try it, or even book it before it officially launches. So think about how Apple does this with their product launches. The exclusivity is half the excitement. You can use the same principle in your clinic. Be the first to experience this treatment before it's available to the public. That line alone can fill your event. So you could even position this as a big reveal. So you're not even going to talk about what the device is or what the treatment is before that evening. People have to come to the event to find out, and they're going to be the first ones to see it in clinic, live in action. Exclusivity isn't about tricking people. It's about making your patients feel valued, respected, and part of something special. And when people feel special, they act, they show up, they book, they tell their friends, they become loyal returning patients. So next time you're planning an event, don't just think about the logistics, think about the psychology and ask yourself, how can I make this feel like something that not everyone gets access to? Because when you do that, you transform an event in someone's mind from being optional or something they'll think about and come back to later to something unmissable. Okay, so next I want to talk about building strategic partnerships. So if you're not building partnerships around your clinic events, you're leaving a lot on the table. Partnerships are one of the most powerful yet underused levers that you have, and when done right, they can completely transform the perception, reach, and impact of your event. So stop thinking of your clinic event as a standalone evening. Some of your events might be, especially if you're launching a new treatment, but for some of your events, think of them as the hub of a lifestyle ecosystem. So your patients don't just care about injectables or skin health in isolation. They care about confidence, wellness, beauty, and lifestyle. That's the bigger picture. So when you bring in other players from that wider ecosystem, you instantly elevate the experience and broaden your reach without spending a penny on ads. So let's break down the different ways that this can play out. So first up, you've got local luxury brands. Think boutique gyms, spas, boutiques. These aren't competitors, they're complementary to your business. So partnering with them does two things. One, it elevates your event because it feels more polished and more curated. That instantly raises the perceived value of your brand. And two, it means cross promotion. So that boutique, that gym, that personal trainer, that luxury local boutique, they all want to showcase their involvement, which means they'll share the event with their audience. And suddenly your event is reaching new, highly aligned, high spending locals who might never have come across your clinic otherwise. So next you've got complementary professionals. So this is a gold mine and so few clinics use it. So this is your dentist, your personal trainers, your nutritionists, your physiotherapists, even wellness coaches. These professionals share your patient base but don't compete with you. So imagine hosting a confidence and wellness evening where you talk about skin and injectables, and your partner personal trainer talks about posture and body confidence and different workout routines, while a nutritionist shares tips on eating for glowing skin. Patients walk away feeling like they've had a 360 experience, and each professional gets exposure to the other's audience. So it's a win win win. And the beauty of this is you don't just position yourself as the injector down the road, you position yourself as the connector, the person who brings it all together. And that can really elevate your authority in your local area. And then there's the third layer, local press and influencers. And this is why I want you to flip your approach. So you don't just want to invite them to attend because, frankly, they're probably inundated with invites. Instead, make them part of the experience. So if you've been working with an influencer and you've been part of their skin journey and they've been on a journey with you and you've got that relationship with them, you could, as part of your agreement with them, ask them to come in and be part of your event, talk about their skin journey, talk about the treatments that they've had and the results that they have seen. And with local press, instead of just requesting that they attend, offer them an exclusive preview of whatever it is that you're showcasing, framing it as you'll be the first to cover this new treatment launch in our area, or the first to see, if you're partnering with other local businesses, the first to see this new community kind of networking connection evening live in action, bringing local businesses and communities together. Press love being first and you're feeding them a story angle. The bigger picture here is that partnerships expand your impact far beyond your own patient list. They add value to your event, they add credibility to your brand, and they extend your reach into audiences you could never reach alone. And in an industry where trust and positioning are everything, being seen at the center of that local lifestyle ecosystem is a real game changer. So when you're planning your next clinic event, don't just think about your agenda or your guest list. Ask yourself, who else in my local area already has the trust and attention of the people who I want to reach? And how can I collaborate with them in a way that benefits us both? Because when you get that right, your event stops being just another clinic open evening and becomes the event that a lot of people in your area are talking about. Okay, so the next thing I want to touch on is creating an in real life funnel, because this is where a lot of clinics drop the ball. They put all of that effort into planning an event, they spend money on nibbles and drinks, they prep presentations, they might even hire a photographer, and they treat the event itself as the end goal. Like, phew, we've pulled it off, job done, we can all forget about it now. But an event is not the end, it's the middle of your funnel. It's the bridge between interest and action. If you treat it like the finish line, you'll walk away with lots of lovely compliments from patients who have attended, but zero bookings. If you treat it like part of a funnel, then you'll walk away with consultations in the diary, deposits taken, and a pipeline of patients who feel nurtured and ready to book. So let's break it down into 3 stages. We've got before, during, and after. So before the event, your job is to build anticipation. I always say, don't just announce an event. You want to really tease it and build up to it. Use stories, use your email list, use your reception desk chatter to drip feed what's coming. Share behind the scenes content of your team prepping, tease the treatment you'll be spotlighting, drop hints about exclusive offers available only on the night. You want to create FOMO. You want people thinking, I cannot miss this. This sounds like, the event of the year. And it's not just about driving attendance, it's about priming them. So educating them in the run up so that by the time they walk through your doors on the night, they're already warming up to the idea of whatever it is that your event is about. Then during the event, this is where most practitioners think, well, as long as I deliver my talk and my treatment demonstration, that's enough. But no, this is prime content capture and lead nurture time. You should be thinking like a marketer in the room. Have someone taking photos and short videos of the event. Capture patient testimonials on the spot if you can. People are normally buzzing, they're excited, they're far more likely to rave about you in that moment than in weeks later. And encourage DMs. So, posting live on stories or live streaming the treatment demonstration on your Instagram feed. And tell people if you're watching from home and you want the event offer, send us a DM. You're not just delivering an event for the people in the room, but you're creating assets that keep working for you long after the event is over. And the crucial bit is to have a live booking system in the room. So, this is where the psychology of momentum comes in. Patients are excited, they're inspired, they've just seen live demos or before and after photos, they've connected with you in person. This is the peak moment to act. But if you leave it with a vague, give us a call, have a think about it, if you have any other questions, you know where we are, the buzz wears off pretty quickly. Life gets in the way. They'll go home, they continue with their life as normal. Maybe they think about it, they talk themselves out of it. That's why you need frictionless booking right there and then. Have people round the room talking to people, ready to book people in. Maybe have QR codes dotted around the place that link straight to your booking page. Have staff trained to walk guests through the process. Think of it as closing the loop in real time. And then comes after the event. So, this is where clinics often go radio silent, but your follow up is so important. Within 24 hours, every attendee should get a personalized thank you message plus a recap of the event highlights and the offer they saw on the night. If they've booked already, brilliant, confirm their appointment and make them feel excited. If they didn't, remind them warmly but clearly that the window to book is still open. Don't just rely on one blanket email either. Follow up with phone calls, DMs, and even handwritten notes for VIP patients. The message you're sending is that you're important to us and we're here to help you take that next step. The clinics that master this in real life funnel stop treating events as standalone evenings and start treating them as real strategic conversion tools. And that's when you're going to see results. So instead of saying, well, we had a great turnout, you're saying, we generated 20 new consultations, 15 deposits, and a bank of testimonials that will fuel our marketing. And that's the difference between running events as a vanity exercise and running them as a real growth engine. Okay, so let's talk about making your event shareable. And this is something that, again, a lot of clinics overlook when they're planning an event. It's not just about the people in the room, it's about the ripple effect beyond the room. And the way you create that ripple effect is by making the whole thing shareable. So if you think about it, when someone posts that they've come along to your event, they're not just saying, look where I am, they're broadcasting trust. They're saying, I feel confident enough in this clinic to let my friends, family, and colleagues know that I'm here. And that is social proof. And in aesthetics, we know that social proof is gold. So, how do you engineer that? Well, you don't leave it to chance. You build those little shareable moments into the DNA of your event. Start with something visual, a branded photo wall, a flower arch, or even something as simple as mirror decor that says, I woke up like this thanks to your clinic name. People can't resist taking a selfie in front of something fun and Instagram friendly. And the best part of this is that every photo that goes up tags your clinic, uses your hashtag, and spreads the name far beyond the people in the room. And then there are the gift bags. So don't fall into the trap of stuffing them with random, irrelevant freebies. You want thoughtful, useful items that tie back to what you do and actually get used. So think of things like a high quality SPF sample or vitamin C sample, hydrating sheet mask, a voucher towards a treatment, or even a beautiful clinic branded cookie. These are the kinds of things that people will photograph, post, and talk about afterwards. And every time they use them or see them, they're reminded of you. And then add those little touches that feel special and unique to your brand. So maybe it's a signature mocktail in your clinic colours or canapes that play off your brand values, fresh, clean, elegant. When you serve something memorable, you give people another reason to take out their phones and share the moment. And then finally, don't forget to set up the digital side of things. So create an event hashtag, encourage people to use the geo tag and even prompt them throughout the night. Don't forget to tag us so we can reshare your stories. That keeps the buzz going long after the event itself. And every single post, every story, every selfie is a free advert for your clinic, and not the kind of advert that people just simply scroll past. It's the kind that comes recommended by someone they know and trust, and that is infinitely more powerful. So when you're designing your event, think beyond the logistics of the day itself and ask yourself, what moments am I creating that people will want to share afterwards? Because If you get that right, your patients become your marketing team and the reach of your event multiplies far beyond the room. Okay, so as we reach the end of this episode, or we head towards the end of this episode, I want to touch on measuring success because I think this is really, really important and something, again, that a lot of clinics miss, but will help you understand what works when you're planning future events. So, most clinics look around at the end of the night, they see a full room and they think, well, that must have been a success. But a full room doesn't necessarily equal return on investment. You don't pay your staff or your suppliers with good vibes, you pay them with revenue. And if your events aren't bringing in actual bookings and long term patients, then what you've really done is throw an expensive party. So don't get me wrong, it feels good to see a crowd, it boosts your confidence, it makes the photos look great, and yes, it does build awareness. But awareness without action is vanity. What really matters is what happens once people walk out that door. So, how do you measure success properly? Well, first, look at the consultations, how many were booked on the day, because that is the clearest signal of momentum. If people are excited enough to commit there and then, you know your event has struck a chord. And then you could break that down even further. So, how many of those bookings came from brand new patients versus existing ones? Because those two numbers tell very different stories. If most of your conversions came from loyal patients, that's still great. It shows you've nurtured your base well. But if you've also converted new faces, that's proof that your event is expanding your reach and bringing fresh growth into your clinic. And then finally, let's talk revenue. So you want to be looking at revenue per head versus revenue per event. So, for example, if you spent £2,000 on hosting the event and you had 20 attendees, that's £100 cost per head. Now, did each attendee bring in more than £100 in revenue? Did the total event generate a multiple of your spend? This is where events start becoming a repeatable, high performing marketing channel. Because once you track these numbers a few times, you can refine and optimize. You'll learn what types of events generate the highest value patients, which formats drive the best conversions, and how much you can confidently invest knowing you'll get a return. That's when events stop being stressful or risky and start becoming a reliable growth lever for your clinic. So don't fall into the trap of equating success with attendance. Measure what really matters: consultations, conversions, new versus repeat patients, and revenue per head. Because when you do that, you're building a predictable, profitable marketing system that grows your clinic month after month. And finally, I want to talk about consistency with events because the truth is, a single launch night or one off open house is pretty forgettable. But what builds real traction is consistency. When you start thinking of events as a series rather than a one off, you move from being a kind of one off blip in someone's calendar to part of their lifestyle rhythm. So instead of hosting one launch event, you run quarterly skin evenings, each one with a theme. So earlier in this episode, I talked about, doing themes, and you could do one event on the jawline, one on the eyes, one on skin health in general. You could look at different skin concerns like pigmentation or acne, or maybe collagen loss or scarring. Not only does this give you endless content ideas, but it also creates anticipation. Patients know that every quarter, every other month, whatever it is that you choose to do, you're going to be diving deep into a concern that they care about, and they start to expect it and they start to plan for it. You could have an annual patient appreciation night, a signature event that your patients genuinely look forward to. Over time, it becomes part of your brand DNA. People talk about it, they ask when it's happening, they bring their friends. That one evening can turn into your clinic's version of an annual tradition, and there's a lot of power in that. And then there's the smaller, more casual evenings designed to keep energy high and give patients regular touch points with your clinic and create that sense of community. These don't have to be big events. They could be intimate skincare workshops, seasonal Q&As, or meet the practitioner evenings. Small but frequent events that keep conversation alive and make sure your clinic stays top of mind. The beauty of this approach is that your events stop being about selling something and start being about belonging. Patients begin to see you not just as a clinic, but as a fixture in their self-care calendar. And once you're part of someone's lifestyle like that, their loyalty skyrockets. You give your patients a reason to come back again and again, and you create rhythms in your business that fuel both community and conversion. So don't just plan an event, build a strategy. Ask yourself what you can put in place right now. And if your past events felt underwhelming or didn't quite deliver on the results that you expected, identify the missing piece and fix that first. When you put all of these different things together, that's when the magic happens, and that's when your events start moving the needle in terms of results. Brand awareness, new leads and inquiries, new people through the door, all of those great things. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode. If you found it helpful, share it with a colleague. Don't forget to subscribe and please do leave me a little review. I appreciate each and every one of them. And if you have any questions, as always, you can find me on Instagram at Bloom and Beyond Studio. See you in the next one.